The history of character design. Game design has been a crucial part of gaming since the 1950s, when computer scientists began designing games. Most games in the earlier days, when games were just being created, had characters that were pre-designed by the creators of the game, which is still a very popular thing to happen in games. However, this all changed when MUDs were created in 1978. MUDs were the 70s early version of World of Warcraft. They were multiplayer real-time virtual world text-based games. Character design has really changed a lot over time, by the amount of customization you have to the quality of the characters, through the use of motion capture, which is where they get real actors and actresses to record their movements digitally so they can animate over to create realistic digital characters. This was first used in the game Arcade Fighter Virtual Fighter 2 in 1994. Motion capture was seen in big games like the Last of Us series, Detroit Become Human, and the Uncharted series. It makes games look very realistic, which is a very popular option for games nowadays, unless they are cartoon characters. Functional character design. In games, for character design, they usually have two different types, such as functional character design. This is where the players get a couple of options or different types of skin or armor for their character that have a good functionality, that can give you different buffs, skills, or protection. A good example of this would be in the game Spider-Man PS4. In the game, you can unlock different suits by doing tasks, and depending on the suit you unlock, it gives you an ability. These abilities can come in handy when you're in combat because they can be anywhere from extra strength, speed, health, gadgets, or a use of a power. Another popular game that functional character design is seen in would be Call of Duty Black Ops 3. In this game, you can have specialist characters when you play multiplayer, and each skin has a special ability depending on who you pick. For example, the character Sparrow, who had a bow and arrow, and when it was shot at someone, the arrow would explode. The special abilities would make it easier to win the game you were playing, therefore making the gaming experience more enjoyable, seeing as winning the game was more attainable. Aesthetic character design. The other type of character design that is used in game would be more aesthetic character design. This is where the option of designing your character doesn't have any effect on your gameplay, so you wouldn't get any added buffs or special powers from how you dress your character. This type of character design is very popular, and when it's included in games, it's usually one of the main features of the game, like in the game Sims 4. One of its main features is that you can create any type of character you want, and people enjoy the creative space they have with character design in the game, and how there are so many parts you can customize, including the facial hair, details on the face such as scars or freckles, hair, body shape, clothing, and accessories. To some players, it's their favourite part of the game, and some only use the game for that feature. There is also a large community of players who make added-on content that is usually free, so you can have even more things to customize your character with. Another game that aesthetic character design is used in would be Animal Crossing New Horizons. One of the main features of the game is that you get to design your character, and players take pride in designing their characters well. There is also a feature in the game where you can upload clothes designs that you have created for the characters, so other players can use your design. Functional character design versus aesthetic character design. In games, what feature is better? Functional or aesthetic character design? To compare the two types of character design, there would be lots of different attributes you would have to consider, such as what the style of game is. Is it a combat game or more of a simulation style game? I personally enjoy both styles of game because they both have different pros and cons. Like with functional character design, adds more importance to being able to design your character in a game because there is more meaning behind how you are designing them, and you get things to help you win the game. When you do, however, with aesthetic, I feel like you get more choice of design and content because the creators of the game didn't have to come up with some sort of buff or power for each piece of content they give you, so they have more time to create more pieces of content. But I really feel like your opinion is going to be based on what sort of games you play. But because there is such a large community of gamers that are so creative, I feel like even though the majority of time with functional character design you get less content, doesn't mean that you can't find more content online made by other players to make sure you have lots of options for an unlimited amount of fun. What is your favourite game that includes character design?
Obviously, I'm going to have a little bit of bias in this. So yes, Spider-Man PS4 is probably one of my favourite games that has character design within it. The original Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 1 was actually one of the first games that introduced that whole like costumes for your character that have certain abilities, and it made me want to replay levels on that game over and over again just to see the cutscenes with a different costume, to see what those abilities could do. And I'd even be sad enough to be like, okay, well this level's quite dark, so I'm going to wear like a dark costume, or in this level I'm going to be fighting Electro, so I need to make sure that I'm wearing the rubber insulated suit because that makes the most sense and things like that. So I got really into it, and I got really into kind of how I would like to see that character look in that particular cutscene or that environment. And that actually carried through to other games that I've played, so things like Mass Effect, or Mass Effect, especially Mass Effect 2, where the kind of armor customization became so much more part of the main game. You could not only could you sort of customize like the functionality and make it stronger, but you could also customize the aesthetic. So again, silly things like if I was going to a jungle planet, I'd make sure I was wearing jungle camo. If I was going to, say, like a Martian looking planet, I'd make sure it was all red, things like that. And I really enjoyed that because, again, it just makes the game experience for me more enjoyable.
Do you think a game is more enjoyable when the character design is functional or when it is aesthetic?
I think more when it's functional. I love the aesthetic bit. I get really caught up in that. I always have done in games like GTA, like say Spider-Man, Mass Effect, anywhere where you can customize stuff, I'm all over it. I love constantly tweaking and changing things. But I think if there's some functionality payoff, it does make it more rewarding. If you're making a change because it's going to give you a certain advantage, yeah, that reward of my changes have impact on gameplay, yeah, it's brilliant. And I think more games should do that.
Do you think it adds more motivation to get further in a game when the character design is functional?
Yeah, 100%. I think if there's a carrot on a stick, or if there's an incentive for you to unlock certain bits of armor or certain abilities that will help you in further levels, then yeah, I think that's 100% a better incentive. Even silly things like I will do all the kind of token collection things just to unlock different suits. Like in Spider-Man, I think rewarding people and giving them an incentive in games rather than loot boxes is 100%. Anyway, I don't mind putting the effort into something if I know there's a decent reward at the end of it. But yeah, 100%. Like if a game's a struggle because you haven't unlocked certain things, it does force you to go back and unlock certain parts of armor, and it does. Yeah, I think it makes it more rewarding and it makes it a more immersive experience.
Do you think that when the character design is functional, it means the game is less customizable?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, something like the Avengers, they've really bungled it, and they did that wrong. I mean, even though a lot of the stuff was customizable, it had absolutely no functional impact. If every customizable element in that game had been functional, it would have been amazing, because it would have given people more incentive to play. The fact that they decided to kind of go, oh, it's not really functional, you can customize the hell out of it, I think it takes a lot away from it, actually. If what you're equipping has a direct impact, then you're more likely to think about what you're equipping to do. Think of things like Fallout 4 especially. Every decision you make when you're customizing your armor, sometimes you end up looking like an absolute mess of scrap and nonsense because you've had to customize, you've had to wear something to get you through that environment or to get you through that level, even if it makes your character look rubbish. For me, I hate that. I hate the fact that the character then suddenly looks like really bad, but I've had to do it to get me through that milestone.
If you could create your own Spider-Man suit and ability to go in the next Spider-Man game, what would they be?
So there was the Spider-Man 3 game for the PS3 back in the day, which was the movie tie-in, which had the symbiote suit, and then there was the symbiote in Spider-Man Web of Shadows. That was pretty cool. I'd love to, I personally, I think it is coming, but I would love to see the symbiote in a Spider-Man game, and I think sort of having that extra strength, perhaps more, or being able to kind of use the tendrils and the tentacles to kind of whip people around is something that I'd be interested in seeing. Or there is the Peter Parker from the Spider-Verse comic that is made out of like 100,000 tiny spiders in a costume, which is insane. But if you were to have that as your costume and your ability, so if you would have then suddenly someone was to punch you and their fist could go right through you because the spiders could disperse, something like that, I could list this off all day.
Because of my passion for character design, I decided to create my own suit for the game Spider-Man PS4, based on a real spider, the Gootey Sapphire Tarantula.